Here's a pitch on the way. He swings and fouls it off, and the man from Walla Walla will take that one home. Swing, there's a drive to left. That one is long gone.
Now, I might have been a small part of your life, but you've been a very large part of mine, and it's my privilege and honor to share with you the greatest game of all.
What is going on, nation? AJ Riley here, a little bit under the weather, so we're going to get that off of the bat right now, kind of on my way off of the IL, if you will. So that's why the voice sounds maybe a little bit deeper and a little bit more nasally. But that is why we are here, is we have a live The Corner for you tonight, ready to go, talking about the 2 series wins that the Detroit Tigers are coming off of and preparing for their next series with the New York Yankees, something that is going to be a fun series. Looking at the numbers, it's probably going to be a very quick series in terms of game time, just because of how dominant these 2 pitching staffs really are. But before we get to that, what I want to talk about first is the 4 games that the Detroit Tigers won from the first place Minnesota Twins these last 4 days. They had 5 games in 4 days, and they got the ball rolling in the first game, winning 7-5, absolutely mashing the ball. They end up winning the series 4-1. They lose the first game of the doubleheader and then win the next 3 games. The Tigers now sit 11-11, 500 exactly against AL Central teams. They are 21-30 overall, 8 games back in the AL Central, and 6.5 games back for that final wild card spot. Now, this just builds on the series that they had previously with the Guardians over the weekend on this homestand. It was supposed to be a 9-game homestand. It ended up only being 8 games, but the Detroit Tigers went 6-2 on this homestand, and you kind of get the sense, or you're starting to get the feeling, that hopefully they're turning that corner. We saw a lot better at bats against Minnesota. We saw fantastic pitching against Minnesota, and it was fun to watch. Before we go any further, I do want to let you know that you can drop comments down and I will see them and I will respond to them. Questions, conversation. I love having all of that. So we will get as much in as we can over the time that we are here. But let's talk about the Tigers and their dominance, should we say? I don't really, maybe that's too bold of a word, but they're really good baseball playing and baseball winning that they did over the last 4 days. Yes, they looked bad in game 1 of the doubleheader. They ended up losing 8-2. I understand that. But let's talk about something that started in that second game. In the 8th inning of that second game, the Minnesota Twins scored no runs. The 9th inning, they scored no runs. Then the following game, they scored no runs. Then the following game after that, they scored no runs. And then the first and second inning of the finale today, they scored no runs. The Tigers' pitching was absolutely essential and crucial and dominant towards a what could be considered a decent Twins lineup. 22 total innings of shutout baseball consecutively from the 8th inning of game 2 through the 3rd inning of game 5. The pitching was fantastic, led, of course, by the ace, even though if you listen to the broadcast, they don't like to call him the ace. He doesn't necessarily like to be called the ace. Tarek Skubal, who went 7 innings, gave up 0 runs and had a fantastic outing, the type of outing that we needed from him, because what that did was secure our second series win for the Tigers in a row, something that they have not been able to do really all season. Their previous series win before that, I believe, was Baltimore when they swept Baltimore. And it really allows them to build momentum to what's next. But we're going to get to what's next in a little bit. I want to talk about these hitters. And I want to talk about what they did this series. Now, it may not seem like a big deal, but one thing that I do track at the Corners Twitter is I post game cards, literally scorecards of each game, pitch by pitch, and sitting there and going through. And what I track for the Tigers hitter specifically, along with a website that I've come to love called Baseball Savant, is the Tigers' hard hit rate. And I think that this is important because early in the season, they just were not hitting the ball very hard. And what Baseball Savant does is when a ball's put in play, they'll tell you the exit velocity, they'll tell you the launch angle, and they'll tell you the expected batting average of what a ball like that in play should be. And some of the times, baseball being a game of failure, it doesn't work out the way, and that's okay. Case in point today, Daz Cameron, his very first at bat, he hit a monster shot to the left center field gap that Byron Buxton caught on the warning track. Now, that came off the bat at 105.7 miles per hour, had a perfect launch angle, and had an expected batting average of 970, but yet was an out. So that just kind of goes to show the failure that's involved, but how these numbers can help us to predict something that might come in the future. Because guess what? In the 8th inning, Daz Cameron hit almost the exact same shot, just a little bit further to the left, and it ended up being a home run at 420 feet. So, but I've been tracking the hard hit. That's what I was focusing on. I've been tracking the hard hit balls. The Tigers in this series, in these 5 games, they had 125 events where the ball was put into play. 45 of those were hard hit. That's a 36% hard hit rate, which you're like, that's not very great. We should probably be hitting the ball like hard hit rate at least 50% of the time if you want to be good. Okay. But when your previous hard hit rate for the season was around like 33, 34%, the fact that that number is trending up is a good thing, is a very good thing. That is up from their season average, and it's something that we should be looking at specifically when we talk about these. When we talk about the future in these upcoming series, is how hard are they hitting the ball? Because eventually, those hard hit balls are going to fall and maybe not be right at somebody. Another perfect case in point was Miggy today, and I've actually got the game card pulled up right here. Miggy today hit a line shot. Had hit a line shot with guys on first and second, and that had an expected batting average of 750. But yet they were positioned perfectly. And eventually, what we want to see is those balls fall, right? So when we're looking at this hard hit rate, it's something that is important. Some more things to talk about as far as the balls being hit hard. Spencer Torkelson had 2 3-hit games this series. Game 1 at Monday, game 1 of the doubleheader, so game 2 of the series. On Tuesday, he went 3 for 4 in both of those games and really did a fantastic job hitting the baseball. Castro and Castro, they joked about it on the broadcast about that being the new law firm, right? Castro and Castro setting the table at the top of the order. The last few games, they have sat at the top of the order, and they have set the table quite well. They've done a great job of getting on base and getting the momentum started. The Tigers scored first run innings in numerous of these games, which has ultimately led to that success, right? Get on the board before the other team early. Put the pressure on them to have to be the ones that catch up. And excuse me, today the Twins did catch up, and that meant that the Tigers did have to play from behind. But you know what? They did, and they played well. A little bit more on the Tigers hitting from this series. Jonathan Scope, right? We've been wondering, when is this guy going to get off the snide? He's hitting sub 200. We need to just like send him out and let Cody Clemens play. We'll get to Cody Clemens in a minute. But Jonathan Scope is doing what Jonathan Scope did last year, where he struggled a little bit in the beginning and then turned it on and carried the team in the summer months. And Jonathan Scope in this series was 8 for 20, which is a 400 average. He had a home run, a triple, 2 doubles, and 7 RBIs. 7 RBIs. Charles, welcome to the show, man. Glad you commented. Thank you very much. I don't know what I nailed, so put that in the comments so that I know, but thanks for the compliment. But Jonathan Scope, 8 for 20, 400, a home run, a triple, 2 doubles, 7 RBIs, literally carrying the team like he did a lot of last summer. And so I would expect, again, going back to that hard hit rate, Jonathan Scope's hitting the ball hard. And maybe at the beginning of the season, I'd have to go back and look. He was hitting the ball just right at people. I wonder what that expected batting average on the balls that he put in play would have been earlier in the season. Another thing I took away from this series, Daz Cameron is settling in quite nicely in right field. Robbie Grossman down. They said that he's dealing with a muscle strain. He's getting treatment for a muscle strain in his back or in his neck area right now. So Daz Cameron stepping up, filling in quite nicely. And you know what? Daz is putting the bat on the ball. The average is not where we want it to be, but average is an average stat. Excuse the pun, but it is. We want to look at other things. And one of the things I like from Daz right now is what I saw in his first at bat and his last at bat in the finale. He's hitting the ball to the gaps. He's hitting the ball hard, barreling the ball up. And one time he didn't get the result. This time in the 8th inning, he did get the result, and it ended in a Tigers win. So it's something that we should definitely be looking forward to, especially in this series with the New York Yankees, which we're going to get to in a minute. But I would be remiss if I did not mention this. But in game 2 of the doubleheader on Tuesday night, Cody Clemens made his major league debut, the much anticipated debut of the youngest son of Roger the Rocket Clemens. Okay, 7-time Cy Young Award winner. If you listen to the broadcast, you heard him all about the groveling over him. But I want to talk about Cody because Cody came up, excuse me, again, dealing with the slightly coming off the IL. So I apologize. I know this is a live thing, but just got to take the good with the bad, I guess. Cody came up on Tuesday night, and Cody looked like Cody belonged. He did not look overmatched at the plate. Yeah, there were a few strikeouts, and yes, he has not recorded his first major league hit yet. I understand that. But you know what Cody did? Cody took close pitches that were ultimately called balls. Cody was putting the bat on the ball and putting the ball in play. In fact, his first at bat last night, he made a nice swing on the ball. Excuse me again. He made a nice swing on the ball and drove the ball to deep right field. Yes, it wasn't out. Yes, it was something that resulted in not helping the team. But from a young player getting his first MLB swings, he did not look overmatched. And that's something that's going to come. I mean, there's going to be a lot of decisions that have to be made in the next few weeks. Riley Green's at AAA. He is moments away from coming up. I'm not saying by this weekend, but I'm saying that he's coming up pretty quickly. So what do the Tigers do when Riley Green's ready to go? What do the Tigers do when Robbie Grossman is ready to come back from the IL? Don't forget, and not that it's a big game changer, but Victor Reyes is also down there waiting in the wings. So does Daz get optioned again, or does he do enough to stay in the lineup? Does Derek Hill, and I feel like he's going to be the first casualty, is going to be Derek Hill, just not doing enough with the bat. Pretty good defense, but just not doing enough with the bat. And then you got Akil Baddoo down in Toledo, but I mean, he's basically blocked himself at this point. So who knows? It's good to have to make those kind of decisions. I would guess Robbie's going to come back. They probably will end up optioning Cody, depending on how he's hitting, how Willie Castro's hitting, and how Harold Castro are hitting, which the two Castro boys have been hitting pretty well and doing pretty great. In fact, I think Harold leads the team in average. He's got to be up there in OPS. He's got almost a 900 on base plus slugging percentage. So, I mean, I don't think he's the one that's going to go, but it's going to be Derek. It's going to be Daz. It's going to be Cody. And if I were to give them a power ranking of which one's going to go first, Derek goes first, Cody goes second, Daz goes third. when they have to make those decisions. Charles says these guys got to earn them spots. The fans, myself included, are coming off of the whole rebuild is over. The rebuild, Charles, to address what you're saying, the rebuild is kind of where AJ's at tonight. The sickness started on Monday. AJ's coming off of the sickness now. I'm not there yet, but I'm coming off of it. The rebuild's kind of like that, right? The rebuild started back in 2017, and we're getting there. Now, when the rebuild started in 2017, I predicted that they would be competing by 2021. I was obviously off by that, just because they went 77 and 85 last year. But vast improvement, right? This year they got out of the block slow, projected to be the worst runs per game team in MLB history or something like that, the way that the season has started. But I believe that we're starting to see something different with this Tigers team. Um, the Tigers have been getting compared to the same old Lions. Yeah, but at least the Tigers have multiple championships in their storied history. So we can't really complain about them being the Lions because they're really not. Now, has Alavila done a pretty bad job of building this roster? Yes. And I addressed that on the corner a few weeks ago. That, we've got this wealth of arms, which are great and they're showing their worth, but we have not gotten any bats at all. And the one bat that we did sign, Javi Baez, can't even read the ball out of the pitcher's hand right now on his own admission. That's why you saw him get 2 days off these last 2 games, because AJ Hinch was talking about how, he's pressing and he's chasing hits. And when you chase hits, guess what you do? You chase out of the zone. And so, the roster construction could be compared to it being Lions-esque in a way, but Al has even said that, he's willing to have those conversations and has started to consider maybe trading some of those young arms for some productive bats. A little bit of bad luck too. That you trade Isaac Paredes to the Tampa Bay Rays for Austin Meadows, and Austin Meadows gets vertigo. Or vertigo-like symptoms, however they want to phrase it. Luckily, he is seeming to do better and is going on a rehab assignment here pretty quick. So I think over this next weekend, you're going to see some of those hard decisions have to be made. But I think we've talked enough about the Twins, because guess what? They just lost 4 out of 5 to our Tigers. And it's time to take that momentum, and it's time to build on that momentum as the Tigers travel to the Bronx, head into New York City to on what is arguably the best team in the AL right now. I was looking at the stats preparing for the show. I said at the top of the show that it could be something that is very it's something that could be a very quick series. It could be a series that goes rather quick. Okay. And the reason why it goes rather quick is because of the pitching that's going to be involved in this series. Here's the deal. The New York Yankees are in first place in the AL Central, but they are coming off of a doubleheader today with the Los Angeles Angels. They have a top 5, according to Fangraphs, offense in baseball. If you just click on the dashboard, they're top 5. They have a top 3 pitching staff, according to Fangraphs as well. And they're a really good team. Like, we should not take this team lightly. However, last May in 2021, the Tigers did sweep the Yankees, and I know that was a year ago. More recently, they took 2 of 3 here at Comerica Park from the Tigers when Aaron Boone infamously walked Miguel Cabrera when he was seeking that 3,000th hit. And listen, we talked about this on Straight Shooting with Matt. Boone's going to get crap from Tigers fans, deservedly so, for walking Miguel Cabrera. But Boone did exactly what Boone should have done in that moment. So let's let that rest. We're not going to, make a big deal about that. So the Tigers essentially have won 4 out of the last 6 meetings going back to last season. Um, going back last season. Well, that is um something that is important, but I don't really want to dwell on it because the teams that played earlier in the season are not the same teams that matched up then. Uh, so here's what we're looking at, okay? Strength versus strength. This is going to be something, it's going to be a theme of this series, is going to be pitching. But we're at a slight disadvantage when we come in and we look at the numbers and we look at what is going on in this series. Okay. Strength versus strength pitching. We're getting their top 3, they're getting our bottom 3, which is not the best way that you want to roll into a series against the best team in the American League right now. They're not going to see Tarek Skubal. They are not going to see Alex Vallejo either. They're going to see Elvin Rodriguez, Bo Brisky, and Ronnie Garcia. We are going to see Garrett Cole, Luis Severino, and Jordan Montgomery in order in those 3 ways. And it's going to make the games move quick because there's going to be some good pitching. Listen, while New York has a top 3 staff in all of baseball, the Tigers have a top 12 staff in all of baseball, and our bullpen is like top 8 to 6, depending on which metrics and all that you're looking at. The Tigers pitching is nothing to sneeze at. It is a good staff that has been well constructed, and the bullpen has been lights out this season, which is going to make for quick games, especially when you look at some specific numbers. So what I'm looking at when I talk about hitters in this series, I'm only specifically talking about Detroit hitters. I could not care less what the Yankees hitters do because the Yankees hitters are pretty doggone good. And we know that they're going to get theirs as long as we can get them we can make them uncomfortable. Jack Morris, for as much as I loathe his announcing, he's right in a lot of what he says when he talks about you got to make hitters uncomfortable at the plate and you definitely have to make them move their feet. Something that the Tigers pitchers definitely have to do in this series. That's all I'm going to say about how the Tigers pitching matches up with the New York hitting. You got to make them move their feet. You can't let them get their arms extended. You got to get them uncomfortable. But let's talk about the Tigers' approach because we focused on the hard hit rate that the Tigers had with the Twins, okay? And I want to focus on our hitting as far as I want to talk about our hitting as far as matching up against this top 3 pitching staff in baseball right now. Before I get to that, let's read what Charles had to say. He said, "Yes, but I think what we're looking for is maybe not so much a series sweep, but we're looking to see the Tigers stand up one of the best in the league right now. We need to be able to see that if they can hold their own and finally against the best." Yeah, you're right. Well, to take that approach, right? The Twins were one of the best in the American League coming into this series as well, and then lost 4 out of 5 to us. So we stood up to the best team in our league or in our division, right? Now it's time to stand up to the best team in our league. I totally agree with that. We're not looking for a 3-game sweep in the Bronx. And in fact, you know what? If they get a 3-game sweep in the Bronx, you might as well crown AJ Hinch Manager of the Year right now. What we're looking for is maybe you lose 2 out of 3, but they're 1-run games, right? You're not getting blown out. Maybe you squeak out a win like you did today in the finale, and you win 2 out of 3. Now we're talking about a completely different look, right? Than having won 8 out of your last 12 and things going. That was quick math, so it might not have been right, but 8 out of your last 12 and things going great. That's a different conversation. We're not talking about a series sweep, and I don't know if I were a betting man. I don't even know if I'd lay a quarter on a series sweep because it's just not going to happen. But what is going to happen, hopefully, is good competitive baseball. And so when we talk about the Tigers' approach, how do we make this a competitive series? How do we get to that top 3 in baseball pitching staff? And for me, I know this might be a little bit of a cop-out, but it's a double-edged sword when it comes to the hitting approach, and I'll tell you why. You've got 2 choices when you approach an at-bat. You can either attack early or you can work a count. That seems obvious, I understand that, but and depending on who the pitcher is going to determine the way in which you go about that, that strategy. With a Garrett Cole, who when he gets 2 strikes on you, you're done for. You want to try to attack early. But that's a double-edged sword in this sense, right? The Yankees pitching staff has a 62.9% first pitch strike rate. They only have a 6.8% walk rate, and they are striking out batters 25.1% of the time. Okay. So when we talk about those numbers, 63% of the time you're getting a ball in the zone that's going to be a strike. Do you attack that ball early? My philosophy has always been the first good fastball that you get that you can drive and hit hard. That's going to be buzzwords that we say a lot: hit hard, 95 miles per hour off the bat or more. Then you take it. But what we are looking at is 3/4 of the time, about a quarter of the time, the Tigers don't make contact with the ball. They have a 75.6% contact rate. They only have a 7% walk rate, and they have a 23.8% strikeout rate. So if you take the aggressive approach, and a quarter of the time, 1 out of every 4 pitches that's thrown, you're not making contact with, all that is doing is lengthening the time that you're facing these pitchers. We saw it today with Chris Archer, actually. Chris Archer had not gone over 4 1/3 innings pitched all season. But by the time he got through the 5th inning, he was only at, and I can check really quick, he was only at 57 pitches. He wasn't even at 12 pitches an inning. And that was hurting us. It was lengthening Chris Archer. He could have maybe gone another inning or so, but I understand the injury concerns and all of that. When we look at the Tigers and their approach, it's a massive double-edged sword. So at bats need to be more like a chess match. In a way, they're always a chess match. That's why you see catchers wearing quarterback wristbands now, and why you see guys checking their hat all the time for where they need to be positioned, and what pitches the pitcher's going to throw and what counts. It's always a chess match, Charles. But you have to be selectively aggressive. You have to zero in on one spot. You have to zero in on one position, one quadrant of the strike zone. You get a pitch in that zone, you drive it through the wall, not over the wall, but let's try to hit balls through the wall. The Chipper Jones approach, as I've talked about multiple times on various shows, because hitting the ball hard will result in good things. So the question is, do the Tigers attack early? Which, if they are unsuccessful in doing, means that Garrett Cole gets into the 7th inning, gets into the 8th inning, and then you got to roll this Chapman in the 9th. Or do they try to work counts? Here's the deal. The New York Yankees pitching staff right now is getting swings on 35.8% or 36% of pitches that are out of the zone. So the Tigers' discipline at the plate has to be darn near perfect in this series. If they're going to try to shorten the outings of these pitchers, you need to, one, make them throw pitches, but when you get the pitch you can drive, you need to hit it and do damage. Okay? If you are going to attack early and aren't going to be effective, then it's going to lengthen the of these starting pitchers. But Detroit as a whole, overall, with a 7% walk rate for the season so far, according to Fangraphs, we're not good at working counts. So if we can't work longer at bats and we're not making contact on 25% of the pitches that we see. That is it's a dangerous scenario going into the Bronx and trying to make something out of a series that, you want to get what you can get out of it. Is it 1 games? Is it 2 games? A home run's good, just not as important in getting that ball out there and filling the bases. Well, Charles, if you look at it analytically, okay, and we'll go off script here for a minute. If you look at it analytically by the new sabermetrics and the new way of kind of analyzing baseball, according to websites like Baseball Savant, and you look also at the book by Keith Law called Smart Baseball, and different things like that. You want to talk about the value of a home run as opposed to like a single. The value of a home run is about 1.4 runs actually per inning, as opposed to just like the one when you really dig into the data and all that. I look, it's way too much math for me. I can just kind of regurgitate what I know, but I know that a home run's worth about 1.4 runs. So yes, are home runs good and are they valuable? Yes, they're 100% valuable. But going up there and trying to hit a home run nearly every time is counterproductive in a lot of ways. So keys for the Tigers when they get into the Bronx: 1, get a pitch you can drive and hit it hard. 2, the pitching staff has got to be as good or better than they were against Minnesota. And number 3, get Garrett Cole, get Luis Severino, and get to Jordan Montgomery as quickly as you can. Not that you want to get into the bullpen of the Yankees, which is also very difficult to navigate through, but it is something that I would rather go through their bullpen than have their starters lengthening the games and getting just to Chapman at the end. So work counts when you can work counts. Be aggressive when you can be aggressive. I call it selectively aggressive, and get pitches that you can drive. This is going to bring us to the third segment and the final segment of our live show tonight. And Charles, I appreciate you sticking around, and those of you that are here tonight, and those of you that have tuned in, I really do appreciate everything that you have participated in tonight. And we will do this more often. Here is my peanut gallery, or kind of some thoughts surrounding baseball right now. First, there's 2 of them actually, and today is the infamous day, a date that will live in infamy with Detroit Tiger fans forever. 12 years ago, Armando Galarraga was robbed of a perfect game for no reason at all, really. If you look at the play, and I'm sure everybody knows exactly what play I'm talking about, it was not a close play at first, and Jim Joyce just blew the call. So it's been 12 years. They had a spot on it in the game today if you watch the broadcast. And here's what I'm going to say. There's been talk of a law school trying to get MLB to reverse the call and give Armando Galarraga the perfect game. Did he earn the perfect game in that moment? Yes, he did. 12 years later, it's time that we let it go. While I would love for there to be a 28th perfect game in Major League history, and I understand that it is a very rare event, it is not something that we need to necessarily continue to dredge up or bring up. Did Jim Joyce make a bad call? Yes, he did. Because guess why? He's human and he's not perfect. And he made a very bad and very public mistake, but he owned it like a man, and he did exactly what he was supposed to do. And thankfully, it did not target or tarnish his legacy, because Jim Joyce truthfully was one of the best umpires that I've seen in my lifetime. Now, I have to deal with CB Buckner and I have to deal with Angel Hernandez now, and I wish that I could deal with Jim Joyce, because he was a man that knew what he was doing. And no, Charles, it did not happen to Verlander. It happened to Armando Galarraga, who was the 5th starter for the Tigers, had an absolutely insane day, But it was 12 years ago. There's no need to reverse the ruling. It just is what it is. It is what it is, guys. Let's let it go and let's move on. That was 12 years ago. Listen, I don't want anybody bringing up anything that I've done 12 years ago. Okay? It just is what it is. We can look back, we can reflect on it, but you can't change the past. You cannot change the past. Owning it does not make it okay. It did not tarnish. Jerry, I appreciate you tuning in. Jeff, of course, you tuning in. Let's react to this, right? Owning it doesn't make it okay. You're right, Jeff. Owning it doesn't make it okay. But you know what? It does make him a man for going, you know what? I messed up. I screwed up. I'll be better next time. It doesn't take away the hurt. It doesn't take away the pain. And it definitely doesn't take away the fact that Armando Galarraga's name is not written down in history. But he owned it at least. He stood there with a tear in his eye the next day. He sat in front of the press. He didn't hide. He didn't run away. He did what he was supposed to do. And listen, I'm not on Team Joyce here, right? He made a bad call. He made a mistake. He screwed up very publicly. That's on him. But he owned it, which in a society that we live today doesn't happen very often. So at least we can applaud him. And as a man, I can say, you know what? If I make a mistake that public, I hope I own it too. I hope I have the courage to do what's right in that moment, regardless if I can change the call or not. It just is what it is, guys. And Jerry, you say that, it tarnished Joyce's legacy. Maybe for Detroit fans it did, but he still was an absolutely fantastic umpire, graded out by everybody as one of the best during his time there, regardless of the one call that was very publicly screwed up. He's still considered to be one of the best. That's one thought from the peanut gallery. Here's my second thought, and I had to take a moment for a second. How many streaming services do you think the Detroit Tigers are on in the next 3 games? I gave a hint. Anybody want to comment and tell me what they think? How many different streaming services do you think the Tigers are on for their next 3 games? Guess what? The answer is 3. On Friday night, they are playing the New York Yankees at 7:05 on Apple TV. I consider myself relatively tech savvy for a 35-year-old. I have different streaming services, but I don't have Apple TV because I have the other ones, and Apple just is what it is. Why the MLB decided to grant exclusive rights to Friday night games for certain games to Apple TV is beyond me. But it gets worse from there. So on Saturday, they're on the traditional Bally Sports, okay? And then on Sunday, apparently there's this thing called the NBC leadoff game or the Peacock leadoff game. I don't even know what it's called. But the Tigers then are playing the Yankees on Peacock at 12:30 on Sunday afternoon. So you have Apple TV, Bally Sports, and Peacock, all 3 different streaming platforms or cable service if you have the regular cable for Bally on Saturday. But if you don't have cable, regular cable, you have to have a streaming service for Saturday night. You have to have a streaming service for Friday night, for Saturday afternoon, and for Sunday afternoon. And it is just absolutely insane. Insane. If I, who want to cover the Detroit Tigers, want to cover the Detroit Tigers Friday night, I have to subscribe to Apple TV for 1 game. Not get a free 7-day membership, whatever the case is. I just don't care about them getting excluded. Like, this is not how you market baseball, Rob Manfred. This is not how you market baseball. Oh, we're in partnership with Apple TV. Great. You just alienated thousands upon thousands and maybe even millions of fans. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. You want to know how you market baseball? You don't charge $130 for your streaming service, or maybe you do charge $130 for your streaming service, but then you get rid of blackout restrictions. Then you find a way to share media across platforms that it can be shared on so that you can grow the game. Growing the game does not mean partnering with Apple. Growing the game means getting the faces of your game that are the most popular. Mookie Betts, Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, all of those guys out in the public so people can see their content and see their media. It's not what you're doing. Rob Manfred, you are maybe the dumbest individual I have ever come across in the history of baseball. I don't apologize for that. And it is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. 100% ridiculous. But regardless, here's the deal. The Tigers are taking on the Yankees. They have won 7 out of their last 10 games. They went 6-2 in their last 8 games at home. They traveled to New York to take on arguably the best team in the AL, and we're going to see what they're made of this weekend. Even though I have to watch it on 3 different streaming services, I will look forward to seeing what they can do over the next 3 games against the Yankees. That is going to do it today. I want to get to a few more of these comments right here before we take off. Jerry brought up that they have a 12:05 start at home against KC later in the year. It's on Peacock. Yeah, Peacock. Well, maybe they'll be thrilled because maybe the Tigers will actually not be close to 90 wins and some people will lose bets that they have made. I don't know. Yeah, Jeff talking about Manfred. MLB showed a long time ago they have no clue how to reach their fan base with their restrictive social media policies. Exactly what I'm talking about. Get the content out there. I mean, they took one of my favorite accounts, Pitching Ninja, and they essentially put him in Twitter jail for a while because he was just doing and putting out a public service showing different pitches and how they come out of pitchers' hands, and it was just phenomenal. Luckily, they wised up and gave him access to their content. But my goodness, like, let's find a way to get more creative about sharing the greatest game that is out there. Charles said, thank you. No, thank you for being here, Charles. You said, my 2 cents, though, wish there was a Michigan sports streaming service so we could always catch them and not have to figure out how to watch the games. Well, here's the deal, Charles. You tune into the corner before each series, and I will tell you exactly where you can watch those games, whether it's through one of the 7 billion streaming services that we have, or if we got to do it the old-fashioned way. Because guess what? If you don't have Apple TV, you can always turn on the best broadcaster in sports, Dan Dickerson, and listen to him call a baseball game. Maybe fire up the grill, sit outside, pop a few beverages of whatever you tend to pop, and enjoy a baseball game. That is going to do it for us here at the corner tonight. I am AJ Riley. Sorry again for being under the weather. Hopefully, by the time I get to talk to you about a Tigers victory in the Bronx on Monday, I'll have this all cleared up. I appreciate every single one of you that interacted. I appreciate everybody that has been here. And we will see you again next time on the corner.